Hello again, everybody. Rhys McLaren, I'm back, and I'm here to have a little chat in regards to the legacy so far of Will Ashcroft, because his second Norm Smith has basically had me thinking, how are we going to rank him from this point on? Because we haven't seen anything like this since, I believe, Andrew McLeod, back when he had won 2 Norm Smiths, and I don't know, maybe because I wasn't too aware of the AFL back when he was running around winning back-to-back Norm Smith medals, and I imagine that was in 97 and 98. I believe they won both of those grand finals, so it would have been both of him. My thinking with him and comparing it to Will Ashcroft is that they're kind of in a similar scenario. They're definitely some of the best players in the league, and it's hard to deny their greatness at this point, because those guys are fantastic. They've shown up when it matters most twice in a row, and the only other person to do that from memory is Dusty. That's the most recent person since Will Ashcroft to do so. And Dusty has GOAT cases, has GOAT comparisons, while Andrew McLeod does not. He just never comes up. He'll always be considered an all-time great, considering he's done what he's done. But in terms of GOAT, he hasn't been brought up, I don't think, ever. So it has made me think, considering how young Will Ashcroft is and where he could potentially be, what is it going to take for him to be that player? And considering Dusty has a Brownlow, I've put that almost at the minimum for what Will Ashcroft needs to do, which is a big task, and with the team he's in, is a lot to ask of because he's competing against a lot of other people. But I've had a little look through his season most previous, the 2025 season, obviously ending in the best way possible, but there is no guarantee he finds another Norm Smith in his back pocket, but the fact he's got 2 is something that he can really heavily rely on if he does want to continue his case in the future, because it's not even considered him being the best player in the league, despite the fact that he always puts on a show. He has put up consistently great numbers. He's just never been the best. And while we'll continue to see him put Brownlow votes on the board, I'm really interested to see what we can see to maybe see him take over the league. And so, Will Ashcroft had a great season. Above average is the way that a lot of AFL.com's rankings kind of put him. He is 31st in fantasy ranking for the season, which is obviously not like the biggest thing in the world. I think he averaged 91 points, which is fantastic for the most part, but like, who really cares about fantasy ranking? It's not going to tell the full story and the impact on a game. And 31st is an interesting position to put him in, because it feels kind of accurate, but I don't want to base it completely off of fantasy ranking. So what else can we compare it off of? 16th in total disposals for the season. Again, it shows just how much he can get the ball in his hand. However, this is also adding the fact that he has played in the grand final, and he played 4 finals this season. So total disposals, it's kind of hard to rely on that as well. Although you can definitely say that he is a regular disposal getter. He sits at around 24 disposals a game, which is great. And especially considering how many players on his team can grab the ball. 16th in total for the season is a fantastic place to put yourself. But one of the things that I've also seen is 71.3% disposal efficiency, which sounds pretty good, and it really is, but it is league average. I do, however, want to mention the fact that league average is really not that bad when you are 16th in disposals for the season. I think the fact that you have an average disposal efficiency while racking up that many shows that you are getting your hands on the ball and still continuously finding your opponents. It's much harder to get high disposal efficiency when when your hands are on the ball that often. So being that efficient with the ball in your hands is a fantastic, result, and really not something I can discredit him for. So I kind of compared him a little to Nick Dacos, because I think Nick Dacos is one that is pretty easy to say and argue as a top 5 player. All you want to say about the man and how he doesn't get a hard ball, doesn't get a contested mark, it's just not his role, and the role he does it better than anyone else, almost anyone else. Matt Rowell, if you're talking to the Brownlow medalist, if you're talking to the Brownlow counts. But that is where I kind of want to bring this debate to, him and Nick Dacos, because I think Dacos, like I said, he's compared top 5, he's been podium finisher for the Brownlow the last 3 years. where can we see some improvement that puts Will over Nick and potentially in that top 5 description, in that top 5 talk? So Nick Dacos averages about 29 disposals, so you're seeing 5 more per game from the man, which is it's a tough point to make. It's really tough, especially when you aren't the main guy. And that's to say Brisbane will have a committee of guys who could get 30 disposals a game, or any game, should I say, while Nick Dacos is almost always the guy who ends up being that linking player. Scott Pendlebury is a close second, but it almost always gets its way to Nick Dacos at some point. He has a way of getting the ball. It's why he does so well every single season. We think to Will Ashcroft, though, and ways he could keep up and catch up to that discussion. Obviously, the easiest way to do it is with getting those extra touches on the ball, being more efficient, and just upping your averages to see over the top. It really isn't a matter of team success. I think with the way his team is set, his team success is never going to be a problem. It's always going to keep him and keep the team winning games. It's always going to keep him up there for an opportunity to win a Brownlow medal, place on the podium of a Brownlow medal, and continuously see himself find spots in the grand final teams. I don't think that's ever going to be something that gets discussed, but more in terms of the Brownlow, upping the disposal count and more effective disposals is always where it's helpful. But the main thing I want to see with Will Ashcroft, and I think what could put him over the top, is the fact that he is actually below average when it comes to shot at goal percentage accuracy, shot at goal percentage. He's sitting at 36%. So every 3 kicks at goal, 2 of them, or a little under 2 of them, miss. And so that's kind of where I've seen a lot of his, holdback, is the fact that he is a very offensive-minded player, while Nick Dacos seems to be much more balanced. And I take that off of the fact that he has a fairly above-average tackle inside 50 ranking for the season, and he also has a very high forward 50 ground ball gets, meaning that he is most effective when he gets in that forward line and when he's getting himself on the end of chains up the field. Obviously, in a team like his, he's going to have a lot of opportunities too, so that 36% goal efficiency is potentially what's stopping him from really becoming that extra impact player. He's already so impactful, and you watched in the game in the grand final, that goal that he kicked off of an insane angle. It's a crazy situation to find yourself in, and yet he can do it, but he just doesn't do it enough. Kind of gives me a little idea of Zach Bailey. Zach Bailey missed out on his opportunity potentially to win a Norm Smith in that grand final. 3 goals 6 can do that to you. He had a fantastic game and he got votes. He got picks in that grand final, but his efficiency kicking at goal was what did him in. And I think that could potentially be what catapults Will Ashcroft to a Brownlow medal contention, is putting more goals on the board or being more involved in that scoring play. Because while the numbers on paper can really wow you, what we've realised is that it's the finishing of plays or it's the hard balls. I think what the Brownlow this year around told us is that hard ball gets are valued a lot more by umpires than the out-and-about players. And not to say that they aren't, because Nick Dacos did finish with 32, but with Matt Rowell getting 39 in so many games where he had 3 votes based almost purely, it felt, off of tackles and the occasional goal in them, it's just that one extra thing that a player does that gets the votes coming in. And I think Will Ashcroft's thing can be being a really heavy goal scorer. And so I don't expect him to be averaging 2 goals a game. That's not what I expect at all. But the fact he is such an offensive-minded player, it feels like, and with the statistics comparing him to one of those dangers inside 50, it makes you think, can the game plan be shifted in a way that sees Will Ashcroft get on the end of it more? I'm not saying that him being the beneficiary of the beautiful play leading up to those inside 50 targets is going to be what makes Brisbane even better. But I'm just saying, when Will Ashcroft plays his best football, it's often when he is either delivering inside 50 or whether he's getting involved in the play inside 50. And it's kind of clear that he's never really been a defensive-minded player, and I think the statistics, when looking at it, has really confirmed it to me. And so what I want to point out here is, could we ever see Will Ashcroft in the running for the Brownlow medal? I think absolutely. With the way that we see him play on big stages, it is no doubt in my mind, especially with his role getting more and more and more increased, that we see him involved in the Brownlow medal. And I think after these two Norm Smiths, we may see a few more people keep their eye out for him. I think that's what we're going to see in the lead up to next year. How long will Brisbane's window last? Because obviously that's important in making sure that he is consistently in the running for the Brownlow medal. And I don't see a time that we ever lose this Brisbane window, it feels like. It's kind of feeling like the start of a Geelong window where the culture and the benefits of playing in Brisbane are so massive that it outweighs free agents' decisions or trading decisions from saying, no, I don't want to go to Brisbane. We're seeing that with Draper and Oscar Allen. Sam Draper and Oscar Allen now going to Brisbane, which means, again, the opportunities opened up. So with more inside 50 targets, again, that opens up Will Ashcroft's ability to be more efficient inside 50. It opens up the opportunity for all the eyes to be on them, and then Will Ashcroft gets his opportunities more often. I think Brisbane's window is nothing to question. But another thing is there any potential worry of Ashcroft's injury history being something that hampers his career? Or was it just one really bad outlier, that ACL? And that one's going to be the question mark that comes for a long time. Until he either wins a Brownlow or does well in a Brownlow or, which I hope never happens, a really bad injury or consistent injuries that keeps him out, we're not really going to know the answer to that question. I want to be able to come to a solid answer when we're talking stuff like this, because I think Will Ashcroft is such an intriguing player now. The fact that he's got two Norm Smiths and in such rare air, but he's almost never talked about as one of those best players in the league. So I'm thinking, what will it take for it to happen? Because he's got so much time to get there. What will it take? And that's the only question mark I've got. Will injuries potentially take him out for too long for him to be able to get that opportunity? I think, yeah, with the main aspect of my argument being his further push to include more scoreboard dents and his below average shot at goal, holding him back from a few more votes. I think if he can continue to be so effective on the offensive end, it kind of gives you a look at why Dusty was able to get over the top and win that Brownlow in 2017, I believe it was. When he won that Brownlow, it was as a exciting mid-forward. While Will Ashcroft's game is probably more comparable to Nick Dacos, I think that could be where Will Ashcroft really gets the step over other players this season, is if he is more effective on the scoreboard. Does that mean he's going to become a forward mid? I really don't think so. Hence why I'm always comparing him more to Nick Dacos. But I think if he can get himself on the scoreboard a bit more, that's when we start to see him in the Brownlow discussion. And my thinking behind it all is I don't see why it can't happen. That's kind of my main point. What is really stopping him from being a Brownlow contender? I think all it takes is a few more touches per game, and that main thing that I've said this entire video, getting goals on the board, getting scores on the board, involved in forward half play. I think that's what's going to get him over the line. Of course, my opinion is just my opinion. You guys may have completely different ideas, and feel free to let me know. I'm always interested in that stuff. Really interesting discussion in my mind. I think Will Ashcroft has been slept on for long enough. I think it's time to see, is he ready to take the mantle? We'll have to wait and see. Or, potentially, will his teammates take too much around from him? Because that's always a threat when it comes to the Brownlow. It's just such a contentious thing at the moment. Brownlows open up so many more discussions because it can make or break people's careers and people's legacies. Two Norm Smiths could be all Will Ashcroft's career is remembered by. And then we go back to Andrew McLeod. A fantastic player, all-time great, but it's all you know him for. And that's kind of unfortunate because he was a fantastic player. So Will Ashcroft, let's see. What will he do next year? I'm excited to see whether we see major improvement from him and whether we finally see him as that go-to guy. Yeah, it's exciting times for Brisbane, absolutely. The fact that they could be seeing even more success. Why can't they do a three-peat at this rate is what it feels like. Why can't they? So I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you liked what you saw, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below what you think. Appreciate you all very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.